Still getting used to the time frame being so quick now. Don't have time to do
I
all the
can't
things.
run and grab my soda.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, well, go grab your soda and come back. I'll introduce everybody. And yeah, oh, you got it. Okay. Welcome to Generation Movie on a Monday night in June. We're in June now, Rich, which means we're only a month away from big releases, big boy pants time in the summer. My name is JW Colwell.
I would.
You think it's big boy pants time now?
We're starting with even with like F1 in a couple of weeks.
In June. Yeah, I mean, I would let's introduce and then we'll talk. I'm kind of excited. That's okay. You threw it on me early. My name is JW Cole. I'm joined as always by my good friend Rich Drees on a Monday night to go back in time and discuss movies that we love and talk about all the different things we talk about. Tonight's the Syndicate episode of Generation Movie. Basically, we're doing a deep dive on this bad boy right here, Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation. If you enjoy our show, please like and subscribe at the bottom. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like and subscribe to our Facebook page. I'm also on a show called Loud Nerdy. We also have a Facebook page. A lot of good things happening there. Every trailer you could ever want. We have Ken McKernan is an amazing fan of both the network and the show, and he puts up stuff quicker than I do. So we appreciate you. As he. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you, Joe Risley. Good evening, Ken. I just gave you a big praise. Ken's always here for us. I always appreciate him. I want him to live forever. Let's talk. We are in the knee deep. We're in June now. Got 2 more months of movies. Right, but 2 more months of big budget, summer blockbusters, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about one. We did. I did a review. I did like a mini review. I didn't actually get on and talk about it, but I want to talk about this for a second before I get on Tuesday and gloat. Although Kyle might be late on Tuesday, so I won't gloat that much, but. I saw Karate Kid Legends, and couple things. This kid's great. Ben Wang is fantastic as Li Fong. Fantastic. This guy here is great. This Jackie Chan fellow, I don't know where he came from, but he is
Hong Kong.
He's a very talented young actor in his mid to late 70s. And Ralph Macchio, who we've loved since 1984, even though he didn't do a ton of stuff since 1984. And what I'm gonna say is, I'm not gonna be hurtful. I'm not gonna say anything mean, but I will say it's a weird movie, and like as much as I liked it, because it understands the beats and sentiment that is necessary for a Karate Kid movie. First hour felt like a bait and switch to me. Because I guarantee you, and I'm not going to give any spoilers, but I guarantee you the person training somebody else is not the person you think it is going into this movie.
Wait. But Jackie Chan pulls off a mask? Is this a stealth Mission Impossible film?
No, it is not a stealth Mission Impossible film. Like I said, though, that's too bad. It would have worked if not for those rascally kids in the skeleton costumes. Anyway, that's a deep dive. But what I would say is it's a fun movie. It didn't cost a ton to make. It cost about $45 million. I think it's Sony trying to cling on to the Cobra Kai fan base. But the problem with that is Cobra Kai episodes were 54 minutes. This movie is 1 hour and 34 minutes, Rich. And I said it was going to be a problem going in. And I stand by my conviction that 1 hour and 34 minutes is not enough time for a big boy movie to tell a story. Now, it could be. And it works for horror films. Kids get put in a situation, then they all start winding up dead. Different. Mm-hmm. So what I would say is it understands the beats of a Karate Kid movie, but it doesn't necessarily pack them with emotion. And the bad guys are bland. Like they are stock. They're stock Cobra Kai villains, but not Cobra Kai, obviously. And so, it's a little bit of a bait and switch. First hour, I guarantee you nobody thinks who's being trained is being trained by this person. And you look up and the first hour is gone. And then about 53 minutes in, Jackie Chan shows up. And then
wait for Jackie Chan to show up in your movie.
Well, there are cameo, like there are small moments throughout where he's answering phone calls or, and so it's like, and then he shows up at the 53-minute mark, and then the other Karate Kid doesn't show up until almost an hour and 10 minutes in.
Good God.
So they are, in fact, like they're like glorified cameos. And then also the whole movie kind of I'm twitchy. I'm like in and out of the pool all weekend. Anyway, so it comes across as there is a glorified training montage, but the whole movie becomes a training montage. And then to show time passage, they put giant numbers in the bottom of the screen, like 4 days, 3 days, 2 days. And I was like, that's not how a montage works. A montage works because it shows different days. So I like, it's a little bit like Chinese food, and then it's immediately digestible and then right out. Doesn't, you won't go back for it. Like, it's fun because it can hit the beats, but it's like a cover band. You know what I mean? Like, it's like a cover band of the original. And for people expecting Cobra Kai, it is not Cobra Kai at all. Like, it's not as well written as Cobra Kai. It is not as, the characters aren't as well designed as Cobra Kai. So we were talking about it Loud Nerdy, and I was told it was going to be number 2 this weekend, and lo and behold, it kind of disappointed when it fell to third. But it's a good opening for a movie that cost $45 million, and it's already grossed 26 overseas internationally. But so it's grossed $1 million over its budget without any kind of marketing, and that's fine. And it's the kind of movie we do need. We do need filler movies that impact other audiences aside from the Lilo and Stitches and the Mission Impossibles of the world, and the Final Destinations of the world. Like, that movie, Rich, that movie is a fucking testament to like making a good solid movie 8 movies in. That and Mission Impossible, right? Final Destination is...
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about how they haven't milked the franchise. They take their time between installments. And this is just one of those... They needed to follow up the last one fairly quickly because it was a cliffhanger. But other than that...
But like I said, I think what's
a little bit, and then you come back.
What's really good though is that it is movie going. It's building what you and I talk about all the time, right? Movie going is a learned experience. I go, I have a good time, I come back next week for something new. I go, I come back for something new. I go and I come back, but it's a learned experience. So if we have all these movies opening and everything's kind of fun and kind of good, we're good. Although I will say, I think if you're a fan of any of the Cobra Kai stuff, you're going to be like, this is light. And there's only one Cobra Kai cameo. It occurs in the mid-credit scene.
Oh,
so like, it's like an incredible bait and switch. And then I read today that they are positing that this movie takes place 3 years after the end of Cobra Kai.
Okay.
And I was like,
that was going to be my next question.
But it's not.
Or do they ignore Cobra Kai?
They ignore, except for somebody who shall remain nameless, except for one person. Everybody else that's in Cobra Kai, the show, is nowhere near this thing. But I will say the kid is really good. And one of the things that comes out of the movie is that the guy on the left here, this Jackie Chan fellow, he has incredible charisma, and he is amazing to watch. Like, he's amazing to watch. He is a marvel to watch. And a thing that I'm going to say, and I don't mean it for any fans of the Ralph Macchios of the world, but Ralph Macchio can't hang. Like, it's not good for Ralph Macchio to be in scenes with Jackie Chan. It's not. It's just like, I love Ralph Macchio. I love that he's reinvented himself with Cobra Kai. I like that he made the character more, fully rounded and did all these things. But if you put these two together, one, even like the facial expressions there in that picture, one is going to come clearly out on top. And it's not Ralph Macchio. So, it's not a bad review. I didn't hate it. Somebody sitting next to us when I went to see it said I needed a win after Lilo and Stitch. You know what I mean? Like, and which again, I talked about, like, not being in love with at all. But box office was great. Overall, we had a $61 million movie, a 27, 20, a 10, a 7. And then sitting there in 6, 7, 8th place, you got Sinners, Thunderbolts, and Friendship, right? And then Minecraft just fell out of the top 10 for the first time in months. So, and Phoenician Scheme did very well in limited runs, 6 theaters, about $560,000. It's good. What's great is that all these movies are doing well. It's a build, right? Let's build and build and build and build. And let's see what we get by the end of the summer. You know what I mean? Like, let's see if we can have a $4 billion summer, Rich. And we have movies that are on deck that are a month away right now that are heavy hitters. You know what I mean?
I say there's 3 movies on deck for July that will probably get us to $3 billion just on their own.
Possibly on their own. Yeah. I mean, let's say modestly $2.1 billion on their own. Let's say modestly $700 million a piece, and hope for the best.
Okay, I would take the over on that, but
I'm just going. I'm going with break even numbers. I'm just trying to break even on some of these movies because there was a report you put out revealed. I loved your article today. Not article, but you're just like, some of these fucking film reporters are so enthusiastic to ruin the business. Like, I just don't understand. Superman budget revealed as if it was like not there.
Yeah. Well, first of all, and I don't know if it's an SEO thing, search engine optimization, but I really hate the word revealed in a headline. It's lazy. It's dumb. It sounds terrible. It
sounds like AI
amazingly
clickbait.
Overused.
It sounds like AI clickbait. I can tell you it sounds like it because when we do the thing at the end of the show where I go and I put the clips up, they're AI generated and they all seem like ridiculous in the clickbaitiness of them. And I'm fine with that. I'm okay. Like, for us, it's okay. You know what I mean? But it's one of those things where we've known the budget for Superman forever. Like, why are we? Much better thing is running time reveal, 2 hours, 4 minutes. Fantastic Four running time reveal, 2 hours, 10 minutes. That sounds about right. That's right in my wheelhouse.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't think runtime articles, revelations are really that newsworthy.
They're not revelatory at all. They're
telling you something like new animated Smurf movies has 3.5 hour runtime. It's like Alexander Plot or something like that. It runs for 7 hours, and
that's a lot of Rihanna as Smurfette, Rich. That is a lot of
influencer Smurf. Okay.
I was thinking about the concept. Like, who knew the new Smurfs movie is going to have Uncle Vanya in it? Anyway, who knew? But like I said, I think for me is the movies we grew up with. If you said 2 hours 7 minutes, what movie am I talking about? A Test. 2 hours 7 minutes, Rich. A movie we both love.
Ghostbusters?
It's Star Wars.
I don't know.
It's Star Wars.
Okay. Star Wars are all on between 2 hours and 5 and 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Yes, so I feel like you need 2 hours to tell a good story. I just if it's an hour and 34 minutes and it's not somebody with a hockey mask killing dumb kids, I get nervous.
Granted, if it was confirmed through whatever venues, means of confirmation that Superman this summer was an hour and 34 minutes, that would be a news story because that would be terrible. That would be concerning. That would be concerning. Yeah. Deeply concerning. I mean, if that's all the time that Gunn needs to tell the story, fine. But I think it's going to irritate a lot of people that it's so short. People for something like that, they want a big spectacle.
They want a lengthy running time. Also, Marvel has not helped with this, right? Marvel has not helped.
No.
We are in Pride Month. We are a Pride supportive show. I think the next story is horrible, and this is where we're living, and so we're gonna talk about it.
I wish we didn't have to talk about this, but because it happened, we damn well need.
We're going to hold on. Let's get comments first. Does Chucky play the same character as the reboot? Yes, they tie him together with Mr. Miyagi through a series of flashbacks that also include Karate Kid Part 2. So, also part.
Wait. Does the next Karate Kid, something blanking on the actress's name, does she show up in this?
No.
Have we gotten any confirmation that movie is still part of canon?
No. I would say to you that there is no. The thing about this movie that is so bizarre, before we get to the other important story, the thing about this, it's fun and it knows the beats, but the only the three characters that matter in the history of the franchise are Miyagi, Daniel, and Mr. Han. Like, those are the three characters. And they tie Miyagi to Han's family through a confluence of events from the second one that it plays at the beginning of the movie. So if you walk in a little bit late, you're like, I didn't know Pat Morita was in this, and then he's there.
I am sure that there are people out there who are just absolutely irritated beyond belief that we have a Karate Kid cinematic universe, and I don't care because, it opens up the idea and possibility for certain types of stories that maybe you couldn't do if these are all just like one-off isolated things. My complaint is it sounds like they didn't do that.
Well, this is again. I think I called it in my review a bait and switch, and I legit feel it's a bait and switch. And I guarantee you, off the air, I'll tell you who's doing the training in the first hour, and you will be shocked in disbelief. You will be shocked in disbelief. I have a feeling.
I was like,
you don't.
Throw it in the chat. Throw it in our private chat right now, even.
Okay.
Because I think I know who it is, but if it's not, then yeah. So we don't use this private chat enough, or at all.
We don't because we like our mind blurbs to be just on live show.
Yeah.
I guarantee. Maybe you think. Maybe you know. I don't know.
Really? Wow. Okay.
First hour. Entire first hour.
And that's a person who's not even.
Wait, I'm going to put the other shocking revelation. Wait, yeah. Truth. Yeah, people. If you, did, I just want to point out that if you got that reaction from Rich Drees, it was the reaction I was having in theaters. And it's just it's a little cliched and it's whatever, and he's in a new school and it just kind of happens.
Familiar beats, and then that happens.
Well, those beats are super familiar. Those beats are,
yeah.
You need to move faster. Beats, right? You need to. I can turn you into a well-oiled machine. Almost Rocky beats, so to speak. And then, 53-minute mark, we get Jackie Chan, and about the 110 mark, we get Ralph Macchio for the rest of the movie. And so it's like, and then it's a training montage, and then the movie goes to the final fight. And by that time, like, the only thing that the villain has is that he's jealous of the girl and kid. Like, the one character has a daughter that Ben Wang falls for, and that sets up the final fight.
It's funny because the person you just told me who is doing the training initially,
yes,
was actually like my pick for Anakin for the prequels.
No, that would have been fine.
I think he would have been good.
He would have been great. But I also think, you're giving it away. I also think that when you're going to the Karate Kid movie, you're not expecting to see that particular combination.
No.
And the person you also mentioned is the cameo, and he's only in it for 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then you find out today that it happens 3 years after Cobra Kai. It's just weird. Okay. Sadder news. We are a supporter of the LGBTQIA. And there was a story today. Jonathan Joss was an actor. He voiced John Redcorn on King of the Hill. He was also in a lot of interesting movies. Very much a background actor, but an actor that made a mark. And
he also had a role in Parks and Rec.
Yeah, and he never caused trouble.
Yeah,
he was also in Tulsa King, Ray Donovan, True Grit, Magnificent Seven. He's in a lot of stuff that you would know where he would where his background acting would be amazing. And because of the world we live in right now, he got shot on Sunday night. Him and his husband were were going to check the mail on a house they were forced to sell because of people threatening them. And, they had 2 years of threats from people.
It had an arson attack on it in January.
Right. It had an arson attack in January. They had multiple threats. They were harassed. They decided to move. They very much moved, but they had to pick up mail. I think they were looking, I don't know what he was looking for in the mail, but they had to pick up the mail. And they were, and it just, somebody shot and killed him because he was gay. Mm-hmm. And it's just gross. It's bad. And it's terrible that we live in this world. And I wish we could fast forward and figure out a better time. I don't understand what people being married or how it's anybody else's business, how it impacts you in any way, how it takes from your life. Somebody else getting rights, or somebody else finding love, or somebody else, hooking up, or anything has no bearing on your happiness as a human being.
None of what you just said is a zero-sum game. If I have, it's rights aren't pie. Okay.
Yes.
I'm
not taking away rights if I'm living a life that you're not living.
Yeah.
Right.
You're not taking a slice of pie from me because you're doing one thing. Somebody over here is getting married and they're not taking anything away from me. A gay couple getting married or anything like that, because it's like a zero-sum game, and it drives me to the point of incoherency, apparently, that it just irritates me because I'm like, why do you care? If you have a deeply held religious belief that being gay is wrong, then let God sort it out for you at the end. After those
at the end, we're all gonna. I keep on hearing we're all gonna face every other. Right, we're all gonna face judgment.
Do you get this upset when you see people eating shellfish? Do you get this upset when you see people mixing cottons and fabrics in their clothing? Tattoos. Do you get?
I would ask. Do you get upset when somebody puts a giant golden bowl in the center of his established residence / hotel, covered in dollar bills with his own face on it? Do you get upset about that? Because that's clearly,
I'm sure they don't,
honoring a false idol. So anyway, this is a tragic thing because he was a talented guy, and they tried multiple times. They called they called cops. They were standing side by side when the man fired. Jonathan pushed me out of the way. He saved my life. So he also died more heroically than the person who shot him is in any way. Protecting somebody he loved.
This person and we're not going to name them. They've been arrested. They're being held. But we're not going to give them an ounce of recognition. I hope the person doesn't have scumbag. I hope the person doesn't have a lot of money and isn't a contributor. I hope it's just some broke person. Well, although with something like this where it's going to be labeled a hate crime, I'm sure we're going to hear the full story. But all I can say is it's just a terribly tragic story, and what you hear over and over again. And I was reading this, like, I'm in Orlando. We moved down here and we had the Pulse massacre, right? So people were in the Pulse the night the place got shut up. People who survived, everybody says, "Oh, you're lucky." But if you talk to anybody that's lesbian, gay, trans, bi, the I and the my
A.
Nephew had a friend who was there that night, and
but why do we say
very
lucky?
Fortunately escaped and I'm happy for my
nephew but lucky. If you talk to a friend that's gay or a friend that's LGBTQIA, if you talk to any of them, they all have stories of how they were lucky they didn't get beat up, or lucky they didn't get accosted, or lucky they didn't get attacked, or lucky they didn't get shot. Lucky for us is me and you finding $20 in a jacket that we put away for the winter.
Yeah.
Lucky for them is not being murdered. And I just think we're better than that.
Or lucky is I was only assaulted. I wasn't murdered.
Yes, the lucky scale for, or I was lucky my family didn't disown me, or I was lucky that I had a counselor in high school that understood who I was. And for us, we go. I was lucky I was able to fit 2 screenings in one Thursday. You know what I mean? Like. And I just think if we lived a moment in their shoes, we would not be this nasty towards them. Because they're not a them, they're an us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
it's like I've said about a number of basically bigotry toward by some small-minded people towards other human beings. I'm like, have you ever actually talked to a person who is gay, to a person who is trans? Have you ever, talked to them about their life, about what they want? If they're anti-trans, have you ever talked to a trans person about the physical changes they go through in this whole process to find, that inner peace? And 99.97% of the time, it's like, no. And I'm like, just do it. Reach out and say, you know what? I kind of don't agree with your lifestyle, but I want to at least understand. And you'll get that empathy. I mean, this is what we love movies for.
It's an empathy machine, really. Movies are an empathy machine.
Roger Ebert's great quote. Yes.
And
it
so
drives me fucking bananas, man.
Let's also even like they also apparently murdered the couple's dogs.
Fuck this guy.
Well, I don't know if the guy did it, but they apparently, when they went to the site of the mailbox or whatever, the couple's dogs' skulls were prominently displayed, like, don't come back.
Because they had been in the house fire earlier.
Yeah. So
somebody went in, found them, and brought them back out.
Yeah, it's bad, and, if I don't say it enough, I'm constantly on board and prideful for all the friends that I have that are in the community, and just I'm with you every step of the way. I'm an ally, not somebody against you, and it just makes me sad that we have to talk about this at all, and the concept that we have people that are in this world that are so wrapped up in what they think the world needs to be, as opposed to just letting the world happen and kind of just trying to enjoy themselves. Find a hobby, find a passion, like make boats and put them in bottles, do something that gets you away from like judging other people, and try to be a tad human and as religious. Love thy neighbor.
Bothers you. Really,
it's just bad. I don't know.
Have some self-examination, please.
Yes, try to be as religiously coherent as you can be. Love thy neighbor. Like, just we're displaying the Ten Commandments in classrooms all over the country these days. Let's try to live by it. Let's try to live by it, I guess, and then not cherry pick pieces of the Bible that we think we understand. Anyway, I hope he rests in peace, and I hope his husband finds salvation and some sort of justice.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
How do you segue into? Let's talk about the production of Rogue Nation. It was simpler times. It was simpler times. It was an easier time when we could just enjoy movies and not worry about how the world was going on any given day. But here we are. I mean, so Mission Impossible. I think that's the best way to go. Full segue. Mission Impossible production. It began started early, right? This is one of those rare things where the development was announced in August 2013. They gave the full reins over to Christopher McQuarrie. They had a script by Drew Pierce. They knew Tom Cruise was coming back. They knew.
And I got notes on all of that. Okay. Well, first of all, Christopher McQuarrie. Yeah, I mean, he and Cruise had first met on, as we talked about last week, Valkyrie. He came in and did some script editing for Ghost Protocol with Brad Bird.
But didn't get a credit. Didn't get a credit. But he was fine with that. And so McQuarrie and Cruise were working on doing in the middle of a story conference for Edge of Tomorrow, which is a fantastic film in and of itself. I highly recommend it. And Cruise just kind of looked up and goes, "Okay, so you're going to direct the next Mission Impossible, right?" And he's like, "No, I'm not." He's like, "Yes, you are." "No, I'm not. Who do I need to call?" "Call my agent." So he goes off, calls his agent, comes back into the room 5 minutes later and goes, "Okay, you're directing the next Mission Impossible movie." And McQuarrie's like, "Okay, I guess I'm directing the next Mission Impossible movie." Now, when they were getting ready to here we go. When they were getting ready to write scripts, they got together a small writer's room of a few people to discuss some ideas, toss some things around, and try to flesh out what they wanted to do. Now, in this writer's room, we had Drew Pierce, who eventually does go on to be the main screenwriter on this. Drew Goddard. He ends up as a story credit.
Yeah.
Though.
Well, yeah, that's after McQuarrie does his passes. But we have Drew Goddard, Seth Graham-Smith, who wrote Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, and Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. Simon Pegg would call in on occasion just to kind of throw in a few ideas, some jokes, and things like that. And this other guy was working on some other movie for Disney, but he would pop in every now and then. He goes by the name of J.J. Abrams. So, like, when he would need a break from Star Wars, he'd just kind of pop over and go, "Okay, guys, how about this? Here's an idea," and then he'd pop back. And that's fair because, you know, he directed part three. So, you know, he had a little bit of.
Well, and also Bad Robot's producing. Bad Robot is producing still at this point.
Oh yeah. So now McQuarrie brought in the idea of the whole opera sequence because he loved Alfred Hitchcock and he loved the movie The Man Who Knew Too Much. And if you've seen that movie, you know exactly why he loved that and why he brought in the opera sequence.
Absolutely.
Now, the script did kind of go through a bunch of revisions. At one point, they wanted to bring back a classic television era Mission Impossible character, Dan Briggs. Dan was the team leader in the first season before Peter Graves came in and took over as Jim Phelps. Now, one of the thoughts they wanted to do was have a pre-credit sequence in 1960s Cuba featuring Dan Briggs, and then later on he becomes a mentor figure to Ethan, and maybe even doing a double or even a triple cross, you know, because this is a Mission Impossible story. You have a lot of that. They couldn't quite find the room for all of that in the script ultimately, and McQuarrie's always said, you know, if we can, we'll do it, but I'm not going to do fan service. Fuck that. Literally, he said fuck that. Now,
they also try to get Martin. They also try to get Martin Landau in as well.
Yes. Well, here's the thing. Brian Burke, in an interview I was listening to, kind of said we had a role that we thought Martin Landau would be good for. So I reached out. His agent talked to Martin. Martin said, yeah. And then that character went away. So I'm wondering, and I feel kind of semi-confident in saying, maybe Martin Landau was going to be Dan Briggs, which would have been fun. I would have loved to have seen that, but we didn't get that.
There's that's one of the possibilities.
And one of the other things, McQuarrie, and this is something we asked about, we kind of like asked rhetorically last week and the week before. McQuarrie wanted to bring back Maggie Q and or Paula Patton. And he really wanted to. It's just that they weren't available. This is why they weren't back. You know, we were like, why wouldn't you bring these people back? But Maggie Q was making the TV show Nikita at the time. Paula Patton was under an option. They had a sequel option for her, but they weren't sure where they were going to go, how big her part would be in the script. And ultimately, she got another movie offer, and he was like, you know what? We're going to release you from your option. Take that movie offer because that's going to be a definite thing and a good thing for you. We don't know what we're going to do with your character yet. So go take the movie offer. And I think that's the better thing.
I think it works out. Right. And it works out. Right. Because we get, you know, the replacement female character ends up being one of the best females in the entire franchise, right? Isla Faust, played by Rebecca Ferguson. There is a chemistry almost immediately. She's physical. She brings a lot of she brings a toughness to the role that's, you know, Jessica Chastain was offered that role, right? They get Ferguson, then they get Baldwin, then they confirm that Ving Rhames is coming back, and then Sean Harris gets cast late, right? So it's one of those things where all of those things come together.
True. And also, I'm sorry. I was going to say, also in the script writing process, you know, initially, McQuarrie kind of resisted the idea of picking up that little dangling thread left at the last movie about the Syndicate And he was kind of like, I don't want to create our own Spectre, which is a quote from him. He wanted to, but they kept
the funny
kind of
thing is,
back
and
to
this is an interesting thing, because this also deals in the production, because it's originally slated to open December 25th, 2015, right? They move on January 26th, 2015, they move it. They're like, we're moving it to July 31st because the other two movies opening later in the year are The Force Awakens and Spectre. So I think it's an interesting thing, but I'm going to say this to you without any hesitation.
Oh, wait. No.
I think the version of Spectre that we get, that movie, and the Syndicate, I think the Syndicate is actually better than Spectre in this.
I would agree.
In this rare occasion.
Quantum of Solace does a very similar, sequence at an opera as well.
Yeah, it's weird, and like, I think when we get to the critics thing later, they're gonna say, "Hey, one of them, like, this is the best Bond movie since Casino Royale." You know what I mean? Like,
and I'm also just happy we're not looking at another doomsday scenario.
Good evening, Tyree, old friend.
Oh, hey, Tyree. Thanks for dropping by.
Old friend. Good to have you, buddy. He's a very talented sportscaster from out in the Seattle way. Huge Celtics fan. What a pain he is.
Seattle.
Go Knicks, by the way, Ty.
You know how long he's been in Seattle?
Long time. He's been in Seattle a long time.
Okay.
With him and his wife.
I've never been to Seattle, Ty, but I will tell you this. I'm a big, big fan of Almost Live. So
I don't know. Ouch. He says ouch about. I think it's about the Knicks. Just saw Rogue Nation for the first time. Interesting. Really? Okay. Well, that's cool. I'm glad you're watching along with us. Ouch. I'm sorry about the Celtics. I'm sorry. I'm a Knicks fan, but we got our comeuppance. We lost to the Pacers. But yeah, I mean, so this movie is. Hold on. What does he say next? Hold on. I'm old enough to get that. Yes. Perfect. Okay. He got your thing. Yep. So what I would say is, I think the interesting thing is all the choices are made and designed to not try to be a Bond movie. But what happens with this arc that we're talking about that starts with Ghost Protocol, Rogue Nation, Fallout and then, Dead Reckoning, Final Reckoning. This last 5-film arc is essentially, Craig Bonds, right? It's essentially what they decided to do with No Time to Die from No Time to Die to Casino Royale, or you know what I mean? Right? Casino Royale to No Time to Die, right? It's essentially the same thing where Ethan deals with the Syndicate for the next 3 movies. And then once we get past the Syndicate, there's something behind the Syndicate that's been sitting there the whole time too. So it's one giant arc that I think Almost Alive is awesome. I'm so excited.
Billy Kwan says, "Behave yourself."
Ty is fantastic.
I could go deep into some sketch history.
Ty is. I'm going to tell you right now. Ty is the one person.
That'll be for another show.
Ty is the person who said I could do this as a job, and I always appreciated him because I never thought I was good enough to do this. But here I am every Monday night with you, bitching about movies and talking. So
we would need an audience to do that.
We can still do it by ourselves. But if anybody wants to blame the podcast on anybody, it's Ty's fault. He gave me the idea. Anyway, so the production, also, I need to point out some of the things I want to talk production-wise before we get going on other stuff. So there's all that stuff with the cast, with the script. But this is one of the rare films we're going to talk about the filming. Right. And I want to talk about this because filming goes from August 2014 to March of 2015. And the filming is crazy. They shoot in, listen to this and tell me you're not making a Bond movie. Vienna State Opera, right? Casablanca, Agadir, Rabat in Morocco, and Casablanca, all in Morocco. Marrakesh Stadium, the Kasbah of the Udayas in Rabat, and then just crazy shit all over the place, right? So, for example, after more than a month of shooting in both Austria and Morocco, they moved to London. They filmed the action scene of Ethan hanging and flying off the outside of an Airbus. It took place at the Royal Air Force, Wittering, near Stamford. Crews performed the sequence, at times suspended on the aircraft at 5,000 feet in the air, without a stunt double. It's crazy.
True. Now, and they did 8 takes on that, and it was basically a case
they
where
were given
the Airbus would come back around, land, and they wouldn't like take a break, let them warm back up.
It was limited. They only had 48 hours. Rich, they only had 48 hours to get the shot. They were only able to do it 8 times before they got the perfect shot, and then like that's just because, crazy.
They of course, he of course had cables and stuff like that holding him in there that they digitally remove. But even so, he's still on the side of this plane, and this is the reason they chose.
He's one of the biggest stars in the world, Rich. He's just.
I know. The reason they chose this kind of plane, though, is it can go a little bit slower than most.
Yes, because it's an Airbus, right?
And so that's going to cut down on the wind and everything on him. But even still, slow for one of these planes is 300 miles an hour.
So just so we're clear, that's not the weirdest part of this, right? That's not the weirdest part of the shooting, Rich. They go film at Southampton Water and
about the plane.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I am. Hey, dude, I can prepare, man.
You're ready tonight. Go ahead. Because I got stuff to talk about when we get to the Folly Power Station.
He's hanging on the side of the freaking plane. They had to put special contact lenses in it that were not just your regular ones that go just over your iris and pupil, but they kind of take up the whole eye. And that's that was to protect his eyes from any kind of like stuff flying around. Even motes of dirt and dust in the air could have caused some some serious damage there.
Severe eye damage.
Yeah. So they had to do that, which is crazy to me. And the fact that they had to do all of that was just, and they didn't even know where, when they were kind of preparing the idea of this sequence, they didn't even know where they were going to put it in the movie. It's the opening pre-credit sequence. But at the time, they were like, maybe this will be a post-credit sequence. Maybe this is going to be our third act, our big third act finale thing. And they just couldn't figure it out. And then
it ends up becoming his Bond opener, right? It's a Bond opener.
They didn't even know if they were going to be able to do this with a real plane or if they'd have to fake the entire thing. Eight
takes over 48 hours. Yep. That again, though, that's not the crazy thing. The crazy thing gets worse for him. They go start filming in Southampton Water Folly Power Station for the underwater sequences. He trained under a diving specialist named Kurt Crack, who is a guy that's able to hold his breath for 3 minutes to perform underwater sequences in single long takes without edits. Now, the scene is eventually cut with several breaks, giving the impression of the scene having several takes. However, the guy that was in charge of the stunts claims that Cruise held his breath for 6 minutes while filming this sequence. He is superhuman, and I love his work. I don't love the person necessarily, but he gives me 110, Rich. Like I said before, the idea that this, like, I saw another clip of him like promoting Final Reckoning, and he said, "I'm not great at everything, but if I am interested in something, I will study it until I get great at it." Which I think is amazing. So they do more stuff with the underwater sequences at Levesden Studios, which is famous in the UK. And then they do they do insert shots and all kinds of stuff, running through grass, all kinds of stuff at Levesden, right? They basically stop filming around February. They halt it. McQuarrie, Cruise, and somebody else basically got together and worked out the third act. And the interesting thing to me there, Rich, is this is one of the best third acts in the franchise. They made it up on the fly. They made it up on the fly, for fuck's sake, Rich. Just on the fly. Hold on. Wait. Ty.
Okay.
Thought of you, JW, when I saw the Fantastic Four trailer. I appreciate that.
And, I mean, we've talked before about the unsatisfactory way some of these villains have been dispatched. Particularly, in Mission 3.
Yes.
But
I think it's one of, like, I found that really titillating that they apparently made up the third act at the end. They also bring in, McQuarrie also brings in music-wise, he brings in a guy named Joe Kramer, guy who worked on with The Way of the Gun, one of my favorite underrated film noir movies ever made. Ever made. If you haven't seen Way of the Gun, you should see Way of the Gun. It has 70s Peckinpah-ish vibes to it. It's a great movie. It's Ryan Philippe and Benicio del Toro. It's fantastic. It's great. I can't recommend it enough. It has also one of the greatest it has a truly startling, amazing opening line that Christopher McQuarrie wrote that is completely offensive in all the great ways. Like any great way you can come up with it. It's completely wonderful.
Before we kind of move through production, I do want to kind of come back to the Opera House stuff for a moment.
Oh, the Opera House stuff is fantastic.
They wanted to shoot that in IMAX and then realized IMAX cameras were just too cumbersome for what they wanted. But they did go to the Vienna Opera House. They're like, this is perfect. This is going to be beautiful. And the Vienna Opera House said, great. You have a 1 week window in our schedule over the next 3 years that you can come in and shoot. So a bunch of that sequence they shot at the beginning of the film. And then they did a bunch of pickups in a recreation that they built on set in London of the stage, the first couple of rows, and then they did a lot of digital set extension stuff to finish up the stuff.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, and of course, it was one of those sequences where they're like, we just shot the shit out of it, and then we found how it worked in editing. It's
a marvelous sequence. It is insanely well done, and with the hidden gunman plus Tom Cruise fighting random people, then Benji gets involved. It's an amazing sequence. And the shooting, like I said, this is a long shooting schedule. These movies take forever to make. And like I said, my favorite thing was that, all the script rewrites, and then also you look down and they're like, we don't have a third act. And then you watch the movie and you're like, holy shit, the third act is maybe the best in the franchise. I was going through it. I was trying to rank them, Rich. The two things I think we need to do at the end is rank the movies, and then I think we also need to rank the villains when we get there.
Okay, because this guy might be number 2 after Philip Seymour Hoffman, in my book.
I think he is. I think he's either 2 or 1. I think Philip Seymour Hoffman's probably the most dangerous of any of the villains, but this one is the one where you can see the talent. And just to give you an idea of some of the pictures, like this Vienna Opera House, look at how sleek and amazing the costume design is, sleek and amazing how the props are. This is him hanging off the plane. Look at how vivid. This is an actual picture from the goddamn movie, right?
Yeah.
Hanging off the plane, the underwater sequence, the catwalk fight.
I will say there's one thing that irks me in the Opera House sequence.
You're irked?
Yes,
what are you irked about?
It irks me. And I've seen it in other movies and television and commercials. Yes, I'm talking about you, Mentos. Where
the freshman,
we see people coming into a theater or a concert space for a musical performance of some sort.
Always late.
They're just coming in. They're just the regular crowd has arrived. Doors open at 7, curtains up at 8, and it's 7:15. People are coming in, streaming in, and then we go around to the side, and the band is just showing up. at 7:15, which is bullshit. And
those band people are very lazy, Rich. I don't know if you know.
We see it here with, we're like 10 minutes away to the opera starting. Thank goodness the entire pit orchestra is just showing up now. They would have been there several hours in advance.
Well,
it's one thing, and it drives me bananas whenever I see it, because I'm like, no, it's wrong. It's bad movie.
The idea that people don't show up people just show up and perform is lost on people. Anyway, let's talk box office, Rich. I did some number browsing as we were doing this. So this one grossed $195 domestic, $493 international for $688 total. Inflation adjusted domestic box office is $261. It had an opening weekend of $55.5 million. The budget was $150. So the movie grosses 4.6 times its production budget, which is great. Opened on 3,956 screens, eventually got out to 3,988. Last about 7 or 8 weeks in theaters. Now, interesting stuff, some interesting fun stuff. So basically, they moved the release date. It ends up opening in July. It ends up doing very well in July, like so well. It's the 8th highest grossing film of 2015. And again, we talked about the heavy hitters that were at the end of 2015, especially one. It basically fell short of eclipsing Ghost Protocol's final gross. So it becomes, at the time, the 2nd highest grossing Mission Impossible movie and the 3rd biggest film for Cruise ever. Its worldwide opening of 121 and an IMAX worldwide opening total of 12.5 is the 3rd highest in the history of July, behind Dark Knight Rises and Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 at the time. And it's been calculated that the net profit for the film is about $108 million, although one of the things you hear from Paramount in defending The Final Reckoning, which we're still in process of box office, right? Final Reckoning cost $400 million, but what Paramount has said is, even if it doesn't gross $800 million, we don't care. Because when the Mission Impossible movies come out, there's such a renewed interest in the franchise and going back. Like Ty, like my good friend Ty, who's like, I just saw Rogue Nation tonight. Just saw it recently, right? It's a bona fide winner for Paramount. Now, the other interesting thing is, when you're looking at the numbers, right? We've been putting them out there. Ghost Protocol grosses 209 and 694. So Rogue Nation isn't far off. And then it will all come down to Fallout being the number one later, which leads me to believe that. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I would be interested to see how much of a driver, and this is only within the last 2 movies we could really have this kind of information, how much of a driver a new Mission Impossible movie is to get people to go, oh, I want to go watch the old ones. Oh, they're on Paramount Plus. I guess I'll kick open my Paramount Plus subscription, for a month or 2 and rewatch that, maybe catch some of the old original TV series, stuff like that.
I'd be really curious. But I will tell you, it has come up recently for Paramount in defending the budget of, well, first off, the budget of Final Reckoning is over $400 million. And it's because of COVID and all the different production delays and because of everything that happened. But it's one of those things where Paramount has flat out said, the franchise is so valuable to us as a company, and Skydance is so valuable to us as a partner. I mean, because they're working on the Skydance Paramount merger as we speak, right? So the interesting thing here is he's too valuable an asset. Even if he wants to spend $400 million, the movie doesn't make money. If you're in the business of Tom Cruise, these movies have made enough money for you to be in the business of Tom Cruise forever. Also, if you're in the business of Tom Cruise and a movie like Final Reckoning costs $400 million, say he comes back and makes Top Gun, a 3rd Top Gun movie for $150 million or $200 million. That's money in the bank. And say he wants to make a sequel to Days of Thunder, which has come up in the last 3 weeks, all of a sudden. You know what I mean? Like, where you just sit back and you go, what's happening? What is going on? You're in the business of Tom Cruise to be in the business of Tom Cruise. Now, I wanted to go over really quick before we move on. Mm-hmm. This movie, up until a certain point, was behind Ghost Protocol. But, like we were saying before, the streak of Ghost Protocol, Rogue Nation, Fallout, the grosses are 209 domestic, 195 domestic, 220 domestic, in that order. Okay, in the order of release. So 209, 195, 220. The worldwide gross is 694, 688, 786. So in the last 3 movies of a franchise, 6 movies in, as we move to Fallout next week, we are looking at a gross of over $2 billion worldwide. So if he wants $400 million for the last movie in the franchise, and it's all on the screen as far as I'm concerned, you give him the $400 million for the last movie in the franchise. You just do it. And to be honest, we'll see where the chips fall, but I think it's one of those things where it's a good investment for the folks at Paramount. And like I said, the idea that it had the largest IMAX, the third largest IMAX opening at the time in 2015, behind Dark Knight Rises and Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, that is an incredible testament to the fifth movie in a franchise killing it at the box office, right? Just finding a way. Life finds a way, right?
Very much so.
And then critical response then and now. This is where it gets fun, Rich. I think I'm going to say this to you, and I'm going to give a brief spoiler where I think I'm headed. I think this is my favorite of the franchise, and I think it's extraordinarily well done. I think it's the villain is great. I think the villain is low key. He's the opposite of Ethan in every conceivable way. And when they come up with the context of an anti-IMF, and you're just sitting there going, this can't possibly work. And then they're like, oh yeah, they're all dead agents. That guy's the bone doctor, right? Like, I recognize him. And then you get little parts where, like, you get the opera house sequence, which is phenomenal. You get Rebecca Ferguson, who's phenomenal. You get, the addition of Alec Baldwin, who I didn't really ever think would be in a Mission Impossible movie, but then he's there and he's fun. And you get a really interesting subplot with Ilsa where, we find out that everything that's gone on with the IMF, that the British Prime Minister was talked into having his own IMF, right? The idea that the Syndicate is like a bastard child of MI6, so like a bastard child of James Bond, is kind of fascinating. And the last 20 minutes of this movie, it's one of the best third acts in a spy movie you could ask for, an action spy movie you could ask for, right? And it has one of the single best. I was thinking of other capture sequences, like the Joker in maybe Dark Knight. When the Joker gets captured, even though it's the Joker's getting captured because he wants to get captured, still the capture of the Joker, when you're watching it, you're like, this is phenomenal. What is happening? This is incredible. But the capture of Solomon Lane is one of my favorite things ever, because there's so much hatred from the villain to the protagonists. There is so much utter hatred when the fucking lid closes on him and he's stuck in a glass cube. And all 4 members of the IMF of Ethan Hunt's team step forward, including Elsa. And he's pointing, like, the sequence is phenomenal in how it's shot. It's wonderful to watch. And he, bullets all around. He goes all around once. And when he gets back to Ethan, he just stops and unloads his clip, even though it's not going to work. Yeah. And there's a pacing to it that's almost unmatched in the franchise. Like the pace is amazing.
I think there's only one maybe 2 villain dispatches that I think are as satisfying or better than this. One is in the first one when Phelps, basically falls under an exploding helicopter, which just drops on him.
Just swished.
And the one in Fallout.
Yes.
Again, involving a helicopter.
Yes, and also Fallout will give us one of our. Like I said, I think at the end of this particular thing, we need to do how we view the franchise, and then also the villains, because I think the villain list Fallout gives us. This movie gives us Ethan Hunt matched in brains and spy tech. Fallout gives us the villain that's Hunt's match and more, right? His equal physically.
A brawny physical.
A brawling brute of a human being who also happens to hate Ethan in every conceivable way. But Solomon Lane is the thinking man's Ethan villain, right? He's the guy that understands Ethan on a cellular level and realizes that at some point the only way to beat Ethan is to beat Ethan's team and to beat the people that are lesser than Ethan. And he's the only villain that comes up with it. He's the only villain that gets the concept that you can't beat Ethan, but you can beat Benji, or you can beat Luther, or you can beat any of the other people that are underneath him. But Ethan is, and Lane is the one that goes, he's the one, he comes back in 6. I think, one of my favorite reviews that I was looking at earlier, and it's somebody I don't particularly like, Richard Roper says, with Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, we're getting the best Bond movie since Casino Royale. And I'm like, that's not far off.
No.
Right? Because some of the Craig Bonds are, Quantum of Solace and Spectre are only okay. Right?
Yeah, and really, all we had was Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, then Mission Impossible here, and then Spectre, right?
Yeah, so it's and
so
to think that Spectre,
wow, it's better than Quantum of Solace, which is a really low bar, okay? Because that was one of those. That was the 2008 strike, okay, writer's strike.
But also I think Quantum of Solace is the spy movie redheaded stepchild, easy to beat up on.
Yeah.
But
speaking of the Bond franchise, though, I've been kicking around this thought for a few days now, and I'm going to ask you this because I think now's a good time because we're at, we're
5 movies in. Yeah, we're 5.
Yeah, we're past the midway point. Does Mission Impossible have better Bond girls than the Bond franchise in terms of how they are as characters, how they are in I think they're more importance to the plot.
Well, I think I think I'd have to say yes in the sense that we've had some Bond girls that are just recently as far back as Brosnan that aren't great. Now, Craig's Bond girls stood, but they're not there's only one really memorable one from Craig's, right? There's only one where you go, that's the one. Our good friend Natasha would be like, yes, Vesper is the one, right?
Yeah, but when I think of a Bond girl, half the time my brain goes to Tiffany Case in Diamonds Are Forever, who is the most shrill and annoying human being on the planet Earth.
I was going Christmas Jones, but
Christmas Jones.
I was going Christmas Jones.
The dumbest nuclear scientist I've ever seen in a movie.
I was whatever Tanya Roberts' name is in A View to a Kill.
Yeah.
There have been what I would say about the franchise, the Mission Impossible franchise, is the women that are in the franchise are all equals. There's never been a point where Ethan Hunt has been where they're equals. So I think you're right in that.
Putting aside the fact that they're never really first and foremost sex objects, which is really what putting that aside.
But you think about like
smart, they're capable, they have agency, they're strong, they don't shriek a lot when something goes wrong.
Well, no, like if you go back. I mean, you go back to the first one. The first one's okay. Michelle Monaghan is fantastic in 3, and then we get Paula Patton in 4, who's really good. 3, we also get Maggie Q, who's really good. So like, and then you 4, we get Paula Patton. This one we get Ferguson, who I think is hands to the sky, because she's the
best female character in the franchise.
Yeah, because she's beautiful and she's an equal. She is not tagging along with Ethan. She's on her own mission, which is an interesting subplot, and her mission is central to her. Like, it's not her mission. Like, it's a very rare case when a Bond girl is on a mission and it doesn't involve helping James Bond.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, Rebecca Ferguson's character of Ilsa, she is on a mission for herself. Ethan happens to be there. You could have a separate Ilsa movie where, Ilsa gets her mission and she has to go undercover with the Syndicate, and it would be a good movie. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think you get that with a lot of the Bond girls.
Yeah,
I don't think
a lot of these women characters, they're in their own movie that just happens to intersect with Ethan Hunt's movie.
Right. That's the key to the writing.
It's a cinematic Venn diagram.
Right. And it also happens again in 6 and 7 and 8, right? We got Haley Atwell added to the mix, right? And Michelle Monaghan shows back up, and Rebecca Ferguson's still involved. You know what I mean? Like, it's still, like, they're still in their own things. And I would say that I think for the next round of Bond films that you and I are always waiting for, right? The bar has been set pretty high by the amount of responsibility to make the female characters half as interesting as the female characters in the Mission Impossible franchise. As opposed to just Bond girls that are really pretty to look at, and we're gonna get that. I mean, we're gonna get that anyway. But I would like if they somehow took a page from this franchise and somehow wrote the female characters as well as, not just Bond attachments. They are actually, you know what I mean? And they kind of did. No Time to Die had a couple of them, right? No Time to Die had Ana de Armas, who we could see in her own franchise. Also had Latasha Lynch, right? Who again had their own franchise, had their own efficacy, right? But Mission Impossible sets the bar very high because the women they're not sex objects, and they're doing their own thing. And Ethan bumps the Venn diagram, like you said, right? He bumps into them and they become enmeshed in the movies. And it's not like they would be having their own movies if Ethan didn't show up. Like Haley Atwell's character in the seventh and eighth movie could be a thief that gets picked up by an agency to become a super spy. You know what I mean? Like it's not that far from the truth, as opposed to like last several Bond girls are not, except for Vesper, Latasha Lynch, and Ana de Armas. And what did we say about No Time to Die when it happened? Ana de Armas, like, she only gets one scene, but it's a kick-ass scene. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what everybody said afterwards,
spin her off into her own.
Give her franchise, right? But the critical response was good. Now we do use Rotten Tomatoes. Last thing before we move on, and we finish up tonight. At Rotten Tomatoes, and I did this as an interesting kind of thing. It's at 90. It's at 94.87. So 94 from the critics, 87 for the people. Ghost Protocol is at 94.76. So this is a rare fifth movie that not only is beloved by critics equally as the last movie, but the audience loves it more because he's giving us everything. He's giving us his all with this franchise. And I think it's like for him, as we get into legacy franchise viability, I think what you see is, yeah, he's known for Top Gun. and he's known for all these movies, but this is the franchise, right? As we progress, as we're halfway through, 5 movies in on an 8-movie franchise, what I say to you, Rich Drees, is that this is his franchise, right? This is the one where at the, it will be Tom Cruise, star of Top Gun, Mission Impossible. Passed away this week. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but this is the obit.
This is the obit franchise, and the thing is, I would argue that he's also having more fun on these movies than anywhere else. Like, yeah, he made Maverick, and it was great, and it saved the industry. That's a fight I got into on Loud Nerdy that I wasn't expecting this week, by the way. Somebody said to me, Tom Cruise movies aren't popular anymore. And I said, that sounds crazy. That sounds insane to me. And then I was told, sometimes I don't know what I'm talking about. And that might have pissed me off, Rich Drees. And
I can't understand how that would happen. Hey,
me getting pissed off or me like just
I didn't know anything about how movies budgeted and cost to turn a profit. And I was like, oh, well, I've only been reading the trades for 30 years, writing about this, reporting about this, and talking to people in the industry and always asking questions. But sure.
Yeah.
But sure. Superman needs to pull over $1 billion to break even. Get the fuck. And then they tried telling me that part of the cost is merchandising because the studios pay to have the toys made.
I would say at that point, George Lucas needs to talk to you a bit.
Yeah.
And would also looking at my room, I don't know what you're talking about, Rich Drees. Anyway, as I have my Batman toy and my Superman toy up there. But yeah, I was told Tom Cruise isn't important. I'm like, what about Top Gun? Top Gun saved movie theaters. Saved them. Point blank, end of sentence. Right? But I think this franchise is the one he really loves. This franchise is the one where he gets to hang off planes. This franchise is the one where he gets to jump off buildings. This franchise is where he gets to go underwater for 6 minutes, apparently, which is, again, insane. All the while, making the most enjoyable spy movies. And it's also a rare occurrence where Americans, we've lived in Bond's shadow for a long time. I mean, we've had Indiana Jones, we've had a few other things, but this is a rare franchise where you can make an argument that Bond and Ethan Hunt are equal, right? You can make an argument that they've made the movies so good, and aside from two or three of the Daniel Craig movies, you could get into a real long argument about where No Time to Die, Casino Royale, Rogue Nation, Ghost Protocol, Fallout fall on a chart, right? You can make a solid argument about, where they fall on the spy movie, action movie chart, right? And I think that's a good thing. I think that's good for us. And the legacy of the franchise, I think at the end of the day, as I've gone back to more of them, as I've rewatched them, as I've watched the last one, thinking this might actually be the last one or maybe not, I don't know, right? But if it is, he's given us a gift, and this last arc, this 5-movie arc, is spectacular movie making, right? It's the best stunts you've ever seen, coupled with really good script, coupled with really good acting, coupled with really good directing, coupled with all these pieces that bring it together and set it above any of the action films we've had recently. Except maybe John Wick. You know what I mean? Like, Wick is a different animal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a distinctly different animal. I think after this, and I'm sure we'll get into it again in a couple of weeks when we actually do Dead Reckoning, or excuse me, Final Reckoning. Dead Reckoning Part 2.
Smartest decision ever, by the way, just so we're clear. Nobody wants to see a part 2 of anything except for Harry Potter. Nobody wants to see it at all. Like nobody wanted it at all. So like to him going, yeah, we need to change the title like now. Like,
yeah.
But I just think
as much as it would kind of bum me out to lose the world building that particularly McQuarrie has done over the last couple of films.
Yeah.
To lose all of that, I would like, I think you have to reset if you're going to do more Mission Impossible films. You have to reset it. Find a star or a couple of good character actors and maybe a star to anchor it to build this, that first team. Bring in like a character actor or two every now and then, like in Mission the new Mission Impossible 3. Steve Buscemi shows up because you need his character, with a character who needs to do something.
Yeah, if they do continue it, I think they need to go in a different direction. But I don't know that they need stars. They could have 2 young stars, kind of like, if you have, I'll give you a perfect example of what I was thinking. Right, I'm thinking True Lies. I'm thinking Ethan Hunt with an eye patch. And kind of like directing people to you could have Ethan Hunt live forever and become a head of the IMF, and you could rotate in and out people. You could even rotate in and out people movie to movie unless somebody sticks. Like you don't need, you know what I mean? Like, and maybe you do
who
that.
I would like to see take a crack at this.
Go ahead, shoot.
Steven Soderbergh. The man knows how to craft a heist.
Yes,
Black Bag was fantastic. I would think if he was interested, I'd just back up the big truckload of money to his house and say, please.
Well, and that's like, I'd like to see like a young star get a shot. I'd like to see somebody like, maybe somebody like, and this is somebody that's kind of rising through the ranks right now as we're talking about it, but like Jacob Elordi is about to have a big moment, and he's a good looking kid. He's about to have some acting moments, you know what I mean? And maybe he needs a franchise that he can count on.
Team him up with Michael Fassbender and let Soderbergh write and direct.
And let Cruise appear as just like, again, I see Charlton Heston telling Schwarzenegger to do something. You know what I mean? Like just a fun little thing, but that would be the dream. But before we get the dream, kids, we have to finish up our deep dive next week. Fallout, a spectacular high. By the way, just so we're clear, we're 6 movies in. We're about to have the highest grossing movie of the franchise. It is a spectacular movie that not only did well itself, but also caused a mustache that ended another franchise. So next week we have Mission Impossible Fallout, and it is the last 40 minutes of Fallout are not as good as the last 40 minutes of Rogue Nation, but they're close. They're fucking close, Rich. They are so close, and when they get to when we get there, when they get to the fucking site and you see her and you're like, oh my God, this is all about this. And then poor Joshua Jackson standing there, which is funny because we talked about Legends. Anyway, hilarious. Is it Josh Jackson? It is Josh Jackson, right? I'm not losing my mind, am I? Am I losing my mind?
Yes, you are.
Who is it? It's not Josh Jackson. Who is it? Oh, wait a second. Anyway, I am losing my mind. It's okay. I'm okay with losing my mind. It's somebody I know though. Hold on. I will look it up. I'm sorry. I feel bad now. It's Wes Bentley. It's Wes Bentley, not Joshua Jackson. They're clones. Anyway, Rich, where can people find your stuff after I made such a big colossal error that I thought was such a finely tuned hook and surrounding thing? Fuck me, I guess.
All of my writing can be found at filmbuffonline.com. We are still working our way through our history of Saturday Night Live with our series of articles that myself and my good friend Bill have been working on. Actually, the one that we just dropped this past weekend is on perhaps what I would call the greatest Saturday Night Live's wannabe contender Fridays, an ABC series that ran for 3 seasons between 1980 and 1982.
Yes, Andy Kaufman's event.
Andy Kaufman's event gave us Larry David and Michael Richards, who would go on with one of the writers from Fridays by Larry Charles to go work with some comic by the name of Jerry Seinfeld to make some kind of show that I guess people watched.
About nothing, really.
Yeah, some nothing show.
About nothing.
I think this is our. Is this our like running gag now that the biggest success is we just like comically downplay?
Yes, yeah. Well, that's what we're good at. We're good, cool. And also we're good at trying to downplay the evil going on in the world. So that's what we do now. That's what we do. Also
coming up, starting this weekend, will be my reportage from the Tribeca Film Festival. I've got a bunch of some screenings lined up. I've got a couple of possible red carpet things lined up, another interview or two. I'm very excited about this year's lineup. So that's going to be fun. I'm going to be like in movie watching mode from Thursday through next week. The only time I'm taking a break from Tribeca stuff is for next week's episode. And maybe while I'm in New York to catch the new Wes Anderson Phoenician Scheme. So you can follow me on all that work showing up on Filmbuff Online. We got a Facebook page for that as well. Check that out, where we let you know when new stuff posts, as well as some fun history and breaking news things.
For example, 45th anniversary of this. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. For example, let's see. Today is the 2nd. Tomorrow is the holy cow. I didn't even realize it was
June 3rd.
50. Tomorrow is the 70th anniversary of the release of The 7-Year Itch.
Who never has a skirt been so blown up, been blown so out of proportions.
One of the great films from one of the great film directors, Billy Wilder. Also, tomorrow is the anniversary of War Games, The Untouchables, and Big. So
all fantastic films,
all wonderful 80s movies. So that's the kind of stuff we bring to you on the Facebook every day. You can follow me. I'll probably be posting a little bit here and there about what I'm seeing at the at Tribeca on my socials, at Filmbuff Rich on Twitter and Blue Sky. Oh, and I might have one other. I'm not sure if I can talk about the animated film that's coming to a certain streaming service at the end of the week yet, but there will be a review of that coming up. I think that debuts on Friday, so I have to go write that. I mean, I've told you off camera,
yeah,
but
we don't want to break anything, so we'll talk.
Yeah, so
we'll talk when we can.
Yeah, I forgot to check what the embargo is on that, but yeah, there's that. I have this list of movies that I'm trying to watch all next week. So
good luck. You can find me. You're gonna have a great week, and I'm always jealous when you get to go to do cool things. I hate you for it. I hate you, but I love you. But I hate you. But I hate you. Anyway, love him. I hate him. I love him. I hate him. My father, my daughter, my father, my daughter. Anyway, my name is JW Colwell. You can find me JW the Movie Guy on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads. I'm everywhere. Not on TikTok though, but everywhere else: Facebook, Instagram, X, Blue Sky, Threads. You could also find me on Tuesday nights with my good friends Jerry and Kyle as we do Loud Nerdy, which is just a great, fun roundup of pop culture news of the week. And we sometimes fight like whether or not Tom Cruise is important, and also how much money Karate Kid Legends is going to make, and how it's going to do, and me bringing up pesky little things like, but Mission Impossible still has all its big screens. Anyway, thank you for joining us tonight. We'll see everybody next week for Mission Impossible Fallout as we continue the deep dive into the Mission Impossible franchise. And we're going to have some more deep dives this summer before some other movies open. It's going to be fun. And I've come up with a new one that Rich doesn't know about that we're going to talk about off camera tonight that I think we should do. So, yeah, it's all in reaction to a trailer I saw recently in a theater where something was happening that hasn't happened in a while. Anyway, we'll talk about that soon. We'll let you know when the jig is up. But thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for joining us every week. And we'll see everybody next week on Generation Movie. Good night.
Take care.